welcome on board. Eze, good afternoon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, you can see I'm eating. The food is very nice. Can you join me?
Okay, we hope to join you later on if the food is enough.
Yeah, it is enough. It is enough. Join me virtually.
Okay, thank you very much. We also have Dr. Andrew Kwasari. Andrew is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Agriculture. Dr. Andrew, you are welcome on board.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. We also have Mma Odi. Mma is the Director, Center for, sorry.
Alliance for Credible Elections.
Yeah, Alliance for Credible Elections. Mma, welcome on board.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we also have Mary Afan. Mary Afan is the National President of SWOFON. Mary, you're welcome on board. Unfortunately, her video is not showing. Chas, can you try to help her? Okay. Yeah, Mary, you're welcome on board.
Okay. But I want to tell Barrister Eze that if he's eating now, he should thank a farmer.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you for providing me, satisfying my right to food.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
So we also have NAOB, the Country Director of Action. You're welcome on board.
Thank you very much.
Okay, please, can you give us a short welcome before we start?
Okay. Let me join Celestine in saying a big welcome, to the panelists, very distinguished panelists, comrades that some of you we have worked with during the rough times of the military down to the democracy times. And I just want to recognize your contributions to humanity. I can see Eze still fighting strong and even stronger now, being on the street. Along with Mma, we are still waxing strong. It really inspires, when you are seeing those who were on the streets with, fighting for democracy, and they are still standing tall and really creating changes and still making sure that their voices are heard and standing for the truth. It shows that we have a lot of Nigerians that are still laying their lives, bare in the service of humanity. So, and for each and every one of you, bringing in a lot of experiences and also the talents that you're bringing on board to this discussion, I want to really welcome you and also to cherish that. ActionAid is an organization that works on social justice to ending poverty. We believe that in Nigeria, if the natural resources and the human resources are harnessed, and the right thing is done with management and good leadership, Nigerians don't have any, business to fall below the poverty line. We do believe that we have enough resources, but also for ActionAid is a tall order. When we are talking about poverty, we are trying to eradicate poverty, but there are certain things that are preventing us from moving forward in terms of how, you can bring food to the table of every Nigerian. A lot of hard work. We have the human resources that can turn so many things. And so when you are looking at a budget shows a nation's priority. What you cannot find in the budget, it means, that you will not be able, there is no priority according to that. And the percentages, even in the budget, will show you what exactly the country wants to do. And so that's why we have a particular attention from ActionAid. We're looking at how can the budget influence? And so when you're also looking at, the audited accounts of the country, we have, for many years, we never had any of those things. We never had it exposed until recently. We are now getting the reports of Accountant General's report, Auditor General's report is coming out, showing that so many of the ministries and departments are not accounting for anything at all. And they are still being given money. And we wonder the influence of the budgets that we're talking about. And so when you are cutting, when there is a budget provision, you are not only looking at the budget, what is the budget for? What is for overhead costs, and what is for the real activities that can influence our development towards the so many goals we have with the sustainable development goals. And I look at an example of some of the things that are on board. Now we have about if I remember correctly, about 232 billion naira is used for debt servicing. Maybe the figure has changed now, but at the last count, that's what I have. It shows debt servicing. This year now, because of COVID-19, we are taking more loans. We're having the loan from IMF is 3.4 billion. You are having, another, at least the World Bank were in a meeting a few days, last week or so, 2 weeks ago, and they were telling us they had given the Nigerian government 700 million, which is running currently, and they are giving Nigeria another 700 million. And then they are also bringing in, they have giving another money, and the African Development Bank and so many banks are giving monies to Nigeria. We need to look at, okay, what is this money meant for? What is it going for? Are we going to, what is it really? Is it anything that will jumpstart the economy? We are having stimulus packages that is coming from CBN. If you go to the website of Open Treasury, is it .org or .org? When you look at it, what is happening there, it shows the percentages, which is www.opentreasury.com, or what I think is .org. I'll put it in the text box, for us to access. When you access it, it's showing that the social investment program or some of the activities of government is performing as low as 1%. And so you begin to wonder at the performance of the budget is also very, very important. So when they are doing reallocation, few months down the line, what is the budget of this year going to be? What is it going to become? And looking at our developmental issues. One of the figures that I also, which is staggering, which can also show us whether we are paying lip service to the budget or we are really looking at the nation's priority in the budget. It's like when you look at health budget, 46 billion, and then you look at education budget as 48 billion, and then you look at budget for the legislatures, 125 billion. 125 billion is for 465 people. And then you have for education, you are having 48 billion for 200 people, which includes them still and their families or extended families. And then you have the education, the health budget to be 46 billion. We are in COVID-19, and what COVID-19 is bringing us back to is our primary healthcare systems. How have we been able to sustain it? What are the contributions of the budget? What is the lineup? So you find out that the amounts that are being provided in these very key sectors are just amounts that pay salaries of ministries and departments and not something that influences. You have the extension workers, for example, in agriculture, which used to be the mainstay of our economy or in terms of support to agricultural workers. They even have the extension services farms. I don't see that anymore anywhere. And so we have a lot of things that we can do. When you are looking at the budget for education, a lot of privatization going on, a lot of private universities and so on. But many of us who are products of public universities want it to continue because that is the only way to provide for schools for the poor and the needy. I just want to leave it for the people. Welcome to all of you, and that as you illustrate these things, the contributions from this webinar will be able to contribute to the public hearing when we are going into them and see how we lay it bare. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you very much for that background. We appreciate that. Okay, just before we start, we want to allow a panelist that joined us representing the Senate Committee Chairman on Agriculture. Madam, please, can you introduce yourself? Hello.
Hi, were you referring to me?
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Dr. Fortuny Huamadoyi, but I'm not actually representing him. I signed in my own capacity as a participant. He was supposed to be here up to this morning, but unfortunately, he had an emergency, which I explained to one of the organizers. Okay. So I'm sorry, I do really apologize. I could chip in if I have to explain one or two things, but I'm happy for what you're doing. And I'm glad Dr. Andrew Kwasari is there from the ministry. So he should be able to answer the questions that relate to the loan on the agricultural mechanization. So going forward, I'm here. I was just as a participant, but somehow Celestine Odo caught me. So anyway, I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah, your video is showing. Thank you very much for being here.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, briefly, Dr. Tafa, please, can you give us a background on the present cuts announced by the Federal Executive Council? Our concern here is that the three key sectors we mentioned were already low. Even these cuts, the impact will be higher. So we are looking at the possibility of not touching these sectors. Please, can you give us the background on what it was and what it looked like?
Okay, thank you very much, Celestine. Just for introduction again, my name is Tefa Abraham. I'm an economist and a research fellow with the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies here in Abuja. If you look at the current effect of COVID-19 on our budget, on the federal government's budget, a very good way to is to remember, you want to compare it to the 2020 Act and what happened to the budget now that there's COVID-19. The total package of the budget at proposal level was 10.33 trillion. As an act, it became 10.594 trillion, meaning from the proposal to the act, it increased. With the COVID-19 now, it has been trimmed down to 10.52 trillion. I want to quickly make a point here. The way the Nigerian budget is being planned and administered, the executive has power on the revenue side. They know what the country actually has as revenue, the real balance of our revenue. The executive knows that because of their executive powers over all revenue generating agencies. The national
Abraham, we are losing you.
National Assembly, on the other hand, has a grassroots idea. So the executive has proposed what should be spent. It is usually low. The National Assembly, all things being equal, using their knowledge of the grassroots through constituency office, through their many works with CSOs and NGOs, they have and through their budget instrument of interacting with heads of ministries, departments of agencies during budget defense. The National Assembly has an insight of what expected expenditure should be for the budget. So if you look at from the proposal to the act, National Assembly is the one who increases the expenditure. The executive often comes with the aspects from the perspective of proposing something that is low. Then again, if you look at the macroeconomic fundamentals for the 2020 budget, within 2019 and 2020, it has changed 3 times. Macroeconomic fundamentals underlining our 2020 budget during the proposal was different. Inflation was a bit lower. GDP growth was a bit lower. But by the time it was passed into an act, inflation became higher. Poverty statistics changed. From that time to this period of COVID-19, all the macroeconomic fundamentals has also changed. Crude oil prices have gone down, production challenges, GDP forecast is casted on in a large scale of doubt. So basically, we have a budget structure right now that will hardly be implemented. But if you look at in terms of allocation to agriculture, health, and education, I want to say in a haste that the proposal by the executive to these sectors was lower. it was the National Assembly's intervention that increased them. For instance, the National Assembly, when the National Assembly received the proposal from the federal government, the share of education in overall budget allocation was 7.41% when it was proposed. National Assembly increased it to 7.54%. Health proposed was 4.14%. National Assembly increased it to 4.16%. It's little, but there was an increment. For agriculture, the total share of agriculture in the overall budget was 1.34%. National Assembly increased it to 1.73%. So the National Assembly are often, it's usually easy for them to make that increment because, like I said, the interaction they have with heads of MDs during budget interaction and with their access to people through their constituency office to know what is needed. But on the other hand, what the National Assembly may not always see clearly is what is inside the revenue box. Only the executive knows that. So it's a kind of a difficult time for the country. National Assembly, which represents the people by legislative provision, knows that the people want that even though you increase this allocation, we may not be able to meet the expenditure. So basically, that is my take.
Okay, Dr. Tafa, thank you very much. Thank you for that background. We can see that the legislature has been a major actor on this, and that is part of the reason we are having this, so that we can get recommendations, hoping that there will be public hearing on the courts to revise the budget before the actual implementation. Thank you very much. So part of what is also to look at the reality of the budget. And this we can do through the revenue side. Yeah, from what we had previously approved was about target of about 8 trillion. Unfortunately, that has gone down now to 5 trillion points, up to 3.3 trillion reduction. So Barrister Eze would take us on that to look at the reality and look at the possibility of realizing, the revenue projected. And at the same time, hopefully the oil is being rebounced at the world market, as at least goes up to, Brent crude got up to $35. So that may be hope. So Eze, over to you. You have like 5 minutes to speak to us.
All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the wonderful opportunity. Let me start by saying that Nigeria has been under a fiscal crisis for some time, even though we are pretending that all is well. As of 2019, according to statistics that came from the International Monetary Fund, when they were considering the rapid financing facility of $3.4 billion, information that was supplied to them by the Budget Office of the Federation and Ministry of Finance, we used 58% of our revenue in 2019 to pay back debts. And our revenue projection was short by 58% as well. So we have a critical situation in our hand, even before COVID-19 and the disruption of supply chains by the COVID-19 pandemic across the world. Now, it is clear that we are going to lose not less than 40% of our revenue from crude oil, because we've now brought down the benchmark. I think what we had the last time the minister spoke was that it's going to be $40 per barrel, $25 per barrel, down from the 57 that it was earlier in the approved budget. So what you have is a situation where the revenue has grossly dropped. But the federal government is saying that they will only remove 71 billion naira from the earlier approved budget. So instead of 10.594, they're going to reduce $71 billion to get it to 10.523 trillion dollars. So in essence, it is a funny scenario. We lost over 40% of our revenue projection, but we are reducing budget commitments, expenditure commitments by less than 1%, which brings me to the fact that realistically speaking, this is an unrealistic projection, because in essence, we have a situation where we will only produce 5.155 trillion. That's our revenue projection that we say we are going to get ourselves, not by borrowing. Then the rest 5.365 trillion is going to be a deficit funded by borrowing and other means. So in essence, we have about a $14 billion deficit to plug. And out of that $14 billion funding gap, we've got $3.4 billion from the IMF. We're expecting another $3.6 billion, which brings it up to 7 from the World Bank, Afro-Exim Bank, African Development Bank, and Islamic Development Bank. So in essence, what we have is less than what we are expecting to get to fund the deficit. So for me, it's a little bit, and even the 5.155 trillion we projected we can get, we are also not going to get it. And then the money set aside for debt repayment has been increased. Now debt repayment is far, far more than double the capital expenditure that is proposed. So if we use 58% to pay back debt by 2019, the projection is that by the time we are going to do 2021 budget, all right, we may need to dedicate at least not less than 75% of all our revenue, federal revenue, to paying back debt. So what are the implications of this? One, we are planning expenditure that we cannot actually fund. Two, we are leaving up massive debts for the generation to come. Now, when you come down to sectors like agriculture, education, and health, what I can see is that we are misplacing our priorities. Why do I say that? Because if you look at the budget, there are all sorts of vague, inappropriate, and frivolous expenditure which does not contain concrete deliverables, which are taking preeminence to issues like agriculture, education, and health. Even where you find funding, for instance, in agriculture, they are very vague. You have loose words like capacity building, empowerment, projects that don't have any location. If you put a location, you say Southeast and South-South. So where do you even begin if you're going to look for expenditure of 10 billion for women empowerment in Southeast and South-South? How many states do you have? So what we are contemplating is that we are working on a document which we have almost finalized, which brings out all these vague expenditure that go to no issues. And the message is clear. Reprogram this money for things that are concrete, which Nigerians can hold you accountable for. For instance, why do you insist on feeding school children who are at home with over 680 million naira a day? You budget 13.5 billion naira for it. At a time, the Nigerian Union of Teachers, the Parents Teachers Association, and everybody is saying this doesn't make sense. Are we looking for a place to spend money when we have places where we can put money? So I think the resources we have are lean, but we need to reprioritize, re-strategize in such a way that we get the best value for money. And for me in agriculture, small-scale women farmers are the key. We don't simply have to make commitments in our green policy, green agricultural policy. For instance, between the period 2018 and 2020, we focused and their policy said we must prioritize improving productivity for the youth and women in agriculture. But we are not doing that. We are rather putting money elsewhere. So there must be a policy plan budget continuum, which makes sure that whatever we put in place in our budget is a reflection of our policies and plans, especially those that are progressive. So in essence, we can achieve much better with the little resources we have. But we must insist as civil society participants that National Assembly can spend. Hello?
Yeah, go on. You are round up.
All right, I'm rounding up. That National Assembly must not spend something like 37 billion, even if we are to leave 125 for them for renovation. That shouldn't happen because the implication is that if we don't cut down costs, the Fiscal Responsibility Act says borrow only for capital expenditure of human development. We are borrowing to pay salaries and for the current expenditure. That is not feasible. That is not sustainable. That is not the way to go. Thank you. Let me stop here for now.
Okay, Eze, thank you very much for that insight. Yeah, it's clear that we are really in a serious challenge in terms of revenue. Yeah, we'll still come back to you for further recommendation on what we are to do, because what it shows is that government will really need to tighten up. Governance should be another area that something needs to be done urgently. Okay, that brings us to the next round. We have Dr. Andrew Kwasari. The Fed also announced of the $1.2 billion that will be used for agricultural mechanization in about 600 and something LGAs in Nigeria. So looking at it and looking at our states of agriculture in Nigeria, knowing that, you know, small scale farmers have been at the forefront of the food we eat. You know, how do you evaluate this? What will be the added value? Is it the priority?
Thank you very much, Celestine. Thank you for the question. I think it is very important that you raise this issue of the $1.2 billion additional or loan to fund agriculture mechanization. So let me start from where your concern is. What is the value of this borrowing to our agriculture? So this program started in 2016, and the processes of analyzing what we need as a country came on the back of a letter of Mr. President to Brazil, because Brazil has, since 2010, run a program in supporting African countries where they can help you with innovative technology, um, uh, capacity building, and um, basic extension training to be able to revolutionize agriculture in Africa. So when we learned about this program, and Nigeria had attempted in the past, I think 2012, 2013, to join this program. So we wrote to ask the Brazilian government. So we went ahead to do the country assessment to understand what type of agriculture do we practice in Nigeria. Everybody knows it's a smallholder agriculture that thrives here, and therefore suitable to what Brazil has, because Brazil has developed a system. First of all, they got support from JICA, where the agri revolution started. So we studied the other countries, Ghana, Senegal, Kenya, who are on this program, with Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, to see how is the Brazilian in-kind loan working, where they do not give you money, but they give you machinery that is needed in your agri sector. And we saw that it was very useful in these countries. However, Nigeria thought that improving primary productivity does not solve the problem, because we need also to add value. So we went back to Brazil and said we need more time to analyze further to make sure that we are tying the machinery for primary production with the machinery for value addition and logistics. So we evaluated and we came with a comprehensive package that will create service centers in all of the primary producing or agrarian local governments, about 632 of them, and 142 other service centers type B or type 2 that are basically factories to add value. What's the design logic? That we have 632 local governments that can produce specific commodities today in large numbers, or is produced by smallholder farmers in large numbers. We look at large numbers in terms of people involved in these commodities and also the output per hectare. Then we looked at that in each senatorial district, there should be a service center that turns these products into finished products for consumption. Now, why service center? We had to ask this question. Back again to Brazil, we noticed that Brazil grew not by farmers, particularly what they call family farmers, owning tractors, threshers, and harvesters, but creating a cluster of services, or creating a service provider in the midst of the farming community that will have everything from land preparation to harvesting, to bedding, drying, and storage. And that this person will be able to sell services to whoever needs the services. So that model, we looked at it and we saw in country, people like Traxi, Tofan are already selling some services to farmers, but basically primary production services. So we said that if we can find private entrepreneurs, which of course we can, who then can man these service centers and sell services to remove federal government from business of buying and supplying tractors, remove state government from the business of buying and supplying tractors, but create a value chain where private entrepreneurs can bid and own a service center for primary production, the 632, or the processing service center 142, comes turned in with everything that you need. And you can therefore, when farmers call, you can provide services for them. Why is this, why did it take from 2016 to date? We needed to analyze the Brazilian government that we understand the terrain, and hitherto, local governments have run tractor hiring services, but it was not successful, just like when you give public businesses to public service to run. It's not the work of government to run businesses. So we said that these service centers, the hiring centers that were in the local government before worked, yes, they did their bit, but they weren't as effective as we want them to be. So turning the coin and placing these service centers in the operation of private entrepreneurs who eventually, after repayment of this loan, can own the service center. We went into this negotiation with Development Bank of Brazil, Deutsche Bank, with insurance from Islamic Development Bank, ISEC, and Brazilian Insurance Authority. Basically, then this 1.2 billion is meant to come in kind to do 3 or 4 things. One, that all the equipment we need will come in either completely knocked down or semi-knocked down. So we are not taking finished and assembled equipment from Brazil. And each of these equipment will find their way into privately operated assembly plants. We have already appraised assembly plants across the zones, all the 6 geopolitical zones, interestingly, starting if you look at Anamco in Enugu or Volkswagen in Leland in Ibadan or Steyr in Bauchi, Fiat, and all of this in Kano. So we have found out that in the past, federal government have supported development of assembly plants. I think the plan by government then was gradually assemble and then manufacture implements and tractors in Nigeria on the back of Ajakuta and all of the steel endowment. But this didn't happen. Interestingly, government over the past years have also privatized these assembly plants. So we said this ties very well to the plan of the Green Imperative, where we can then also support the private assembly plant owners to augment, to improve their current investment, and then they will now assemble these tractors and implements and factories and do it timely because it belongs to an entrepreneur.
Okay,
who will
Dr.
pay you
can
back.
you round up? We'll still come
So,
back to you. Yeah.
okay, thank you. So basically what I'm saying then is that creating this handshake between government facilitating. So the role of government is, government has facilitated this loan at below 3%, but the loan will be transferred to private sector. So the role of government is just enabling the loan, guaranteeing the loan, selected private sector, those that will bid for it in the public. And we've worked out all of this through the past 4 years, the appraisal processes and all of that. Then they will run their businesses and pay back the loan eventually. The loan has between 12 to 15 years gestation period, but basically to summarize it, it will be very impactful, particularly on the smallholder farmers that can pay for services in kind or in cash. They can pay the service operator. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Andrew. We have here the president of SWOFON, an association of small-scale farmers, Mary Afan. Please, from what the insight he just gave us, we want to get your own perspective, you know, whether this also resounds with the small-scale farmers that we are representing.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Andrew. Actually, we have actually been looking at how to reduce the, the labor of women on the field, and actually been talking on how to get technology that can actually help us reduce the amount of energy we use in doing our farming activities. If you look at a woman when she's 40 years old, she'll be looking like as if she's 70. This is because of the too much labor she does on the farm. If we can have technology that can actually reduce the amount of time she spends on the farm to have some time to take care of the family, and again, reduce the energy she is using to put into the farm, it will actually help us. But I want to look at it at this point I want to compare technology and mechanization. Mechanization will involve you getting a very large area of land where the tractors or the equipment can be moved to work for you. I want to reassure that smallholder women farmers, as you know, in Nigeria, our land acreage range from 0.1 hectare to 2 hectares. And sometimes the challenges we've been having with the tractor hiring unit is that they are complaining that our land coverage is too small, so that they cannot come to, till a land of 0.1 hectare or 0.5 hectare. I'm looking at it as if at all this loan is going to work for smallholder farmers. Have they actually looked into how to bring in the energy saving technology that can help the smallholder farmers? Like the technologies like power tillers, the small processing equipment, planters, harvester, plowers, and these are some of the equipment that can be useful for smallholder farmers. But I don't know, I want to ask Mr. Andrew whether such things were actually considered before actually planning for these activities to have a hiring unit for the mechanization. Because sometimes we always complain that it is always very good when such things are going to be planned. We should actually be involved so that we can also give an input of what can work best for us. I am quite sure that technology is very, very important. In Burkina Faso in 2018, all the women farmers all over Africa gathered there. They handed over the hand hoe to the museum and now said we no longer want to use the locally fabricated hand hoe that we use. We now want an implement that can be simply operated by women farmers, like the power tillers, like the hand planter, the harvesters, and also processing equipment that we can add value to our products when we produce it. But I want to find out if actually this one is actually taking care of smallholder farmers, then there should be a unit whereby some of this implement will be kept that women can operate themselves and use it themselves to be able to actually render services to them. Or else we begin to look at it as mechanization is coming to displace us from our land, mobilizing the land together to be able to produce in large quantities, and we lack where to farm. But if it is actually bringing in technology, the technology should actually look into having the modular machines that can actually serve in the rural areas, like processing machine, rice processing.
Okay, Mary, because of time, you will still have opportunity to round up. We hope that Andrew will respond to your question later on. Yeah,
Thank
Dr.
you.
For that mix-up, addressing you, Mister. Yeah, before we get to Fortune, please, Mma Odi, yeah, the cut in the budget is already seen as a major challenge when we talk about the women folk and the most vulnerable. We are saying that these sectors were already low, and looking at the budget allocation to women affairs is just 0.08%, less than 1%. In the year 2020. So we don't know whether the cuts will still affect it, as we've not seen the detail. Please, can we get your view on this? Ma.
Okay, I'll just start by saying, thank you for having me. My name is Imma, General Secretary, Alliance for Federal Elections. I just start by saying that if we're serious about economic growth, to eradicate poverty, and to ensure well-being of the society, we have to ensure that women and other vulnerable groups are taken care of. We are the headquarters of poverty in the world, and the majority of the poor are women and girls and vulnerables. And we also they have the highest maternal mortality rate in Africa, and our second globally, talking about our situation. This month, we are celebrating 21 years of democracy in Nigeria, and we still have this ridiculous maternal mortality, highest in Africa, and second globally to India that has over 1.2 billion population. It is very sad. And to say that we always have low cuts, budgetary allocation to areas that can improve on the welfare of women, girls, and other vulnerable. That is agriculture, education, and health. But the bigger question is that even this whole allocation, are they being implemented? No. In some, if you check from year 2016 to year 2020, you can also find out that because of revenue short, that the places being affected mostly is these ministries, agriculture, health, and also education, that would have improved on the welfare of women, girls, and the vulnerable. Because if you address the issues of education, health, you have mostly agriculture, you will reduce the number of even child mortality. And now Nigeria has 15% of the worldwide rate of child mortality worldwide. So if you address the issue of agriculture, you will ensure that there is food, and the food security will ensure that there is a reduction in child mortality and also maternal mortality. And you will show economic growth, and will also ensure that the well-being of the population, the majority of women, are being taken care of. Small-scale farmers, women account over 80% of small-scale farmers, and we know that the small-scale farming has given employment so many women, over 80%. If we give women loan, microcredit, and they use it, when we say they give microcredit, most of those who benefit from it are the big-time men farmers who use the money for so many things by farming. So if we ensure that women have credit for the processing, farming, processing, and also ensuring storation of their goods to sell where the goods are needed, to stop perishable goods from perishing in the course of preservation, we will ensure economic growth, we ensure we feed our nation, we ensure reduction in poverty and maternal mortality and child mortality. And we ensure also that if we invest more in education, in concrete terms, like SHO said, you will see vague allocations to capacity building. You will see South-South, North-Central, North-West. Those monies go to corruption. If we reduce corruption in the implementation of with even the limited allocations, we will see that even the little allocations will impact directly in the welfare of the people. When you are not impacting in the welfare of the people and ensuring equality, you're actually going against the Constitution, because Section 16 said that the welfare of the people and their happiness and equality also, that it should be paramount business of the government. When government is also doing taking more loan, also I was waiting to hear Dr. Abraham talk about the recovery of Abacha's money, ancestral money, because he's also there. And also we heard that all the money donated for COVID-19 will be used to implement this year 2020. That's what the government told us. We had 2020 budget. But reality is that by the time we start tracking this budget, we are campaigning for more allocation to these ministries that impact directly on the lives of women, girls, and the other vulnerable groups. The youth, the person, they thought this senator just did this in his family house to help them. So we should ensure there is awareness, even the little one, and it should be implemented. It should be specific. You can't give a vague allocation to capacity building that you intend to steal. We have to, and this COVID-19 has presented us, it's not as bad as it is. It has exposed the lack of investment in the healthcare delivery across the world. But our own is worse because, and also because he has affected every sector of the society. Now the government should be thinking seriously how to invest more in education, in health, and in agriculture to show that we are self-sufficient, so we don't run head and taker looking for a way to go and import drugs or to buy beds, or who will give us loan to even do the little we can do to save our people. It's even God that is saving us. If we have the kind of situation the US have, then we are finished, because there's nothing to actually help in this kind of situation. It's God that is helping us. We need to campaign for more allocation to health, to agriculture, to education, even to women ministry. But we have to be very at the back of our mind that we need to see that this allocation are specifically to projects that will impact directly on the lives of women, girls, and other vulnerable. And also to ensure that the money is being put where our mouth is, and that it did not go to corruption. Then we will see that these things are happening. We can't just campaign for put more money for women ministry that will go into individual pockets. Thank you.
Okay, Mma, thank you very much for that insight. Yeah, Nigeria becoming the headquarters of poverty is really unfortunate. Researchers have shown that, investments in education, agriculture, and health, go a long way in bridging poverty and inequality. But coming to us in our budgeting dynamic, we still see that these areas are very, very low. Culture that is supposed to be, or is, one of the priority of government. We still have less than 2% on that. Okay, Fortune, please, can we get your input on this before we move on? Fortune?
Hi. Thank you very much. Hello, participants and panelists. I'm Fortune Ihuamadoyin. I'm Clark Senate Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development. I'm happy to be here today, although not initially as a panelist, as I said. Well, talking generally about, I'm really happy that we're talking about this subject matter today, because with COVID-19, we can see that the sector is very important, because without food, no one will be alive. Agri budget has been low over time, and we've been trying in the National Assembly to improve it. At some point, the budget was about 0.79% of the national budget. It hasn't gone up to 2% at any time. And this is wrong, because even the Maputo Declaration says we should have 10% of the national budget. And if we're still battling with 1%, 1 point something percent every appropriation year, then it's really something we have to look into. Dr. Abraham talked about that. And, we're seeing with this challenge today, with this pandemic today, that agriculture is very important. All farmers are in the fields now looking for food for us. If we didn't have the farmers there, then there would be another pandemic, the hunger pandemic. So we're happy that the farmers are there. Researchers are doing their work. The health sector too has a major challenge. These are areas that the government needs to look into and fund properly. Mrs. Ennis said something about National Assembly budget for legislators, only 369 House of Reps members, 109 senators, having a budget of 125 billion. I need to set that record straight here. I shouldn't be speaking for the National Assembly, but that budget, Dr. Tefa, you should know that budget is for the National Assembly legislators, the staff, their aides, the Institute for Legislative Studies and Democratic Studies, the commission. We are all parts of that budget. It was initially at some point 150 billion. During the President, Senator David Mark's time, they reduced it to 135. And then they reduced it further again, I think this National Assembly or the last one, to 125. So 125 billion. And so that is just to keep the record straight, that budget is for the entire National Assembly, including we that are staff of National Assembly. So having said that, budget tracking too for Mrs. Ma Odi is very good. I've been looking at budgets on Twitter. They've been tracking a lot of legislators' budgets and making people, constituents, know that projects are attracted to their constituencies and maybe it hasn't been done, or this is the status of the project, it's a good thing, because now constituents know that something has been brought in for them, not a senator or a House of Reps project, but he facilitated it to the area. A major challenge here, some of those projects facilitated are not funded. They are not fully funded. Some are fully funded, some are not. But it's left for now the executive to ensure that they fund those projects. And there are times that the budgets are not 100% funded. There is actually any appropriation year, maybe perhaps in the last, maybe during Jonathan's time, that we had up to maybe 100 or 80% capital funded. But most of this year and last year, we haven't had up to 60, 50% funding of most of the projects. So that is something the government should be able to look into. And then another thing that came in from the discussions today was that of empowerment, capacity building and empowerment. To tell you the truth, if you go down to the grassroots, many youths, a lot of youths and women are happy about such projects, because this is actually the first time they are feeling the presence of the federal government. Most of them are able to go into their own small scale farming from such training. I can tell of so many people that have called in and said, this program has empowered me so much, I have my own farm. In fact, I can give examples of people that from their trainings on poultry production were able to, during this lockdown, were able to sell their birds, their little birds that were given to them during those trainings. So in some instances, you could say people have not benefited, but majority of the youths and women, if they are properly diverted to such projects, have benefited from them. We make laws. National Assembly is there to make laws. And so we have the backing of the executive to make laws. With respect to the 1.2 billion loan, I think the leadership is in talks with the executive, the ministers of agric and finance, the ones that actually processed the 1.2 billion loan for agricultural mechanization. They have to formally bring it to the National Assembly for it to be formalized by way of law. So we're here to work with you, and then I'm sure going forward, the sector will be able to benefit from all the efforts we have all put in together. It's our collective responsibility to make sure that agriculture takes its rightful position in the country. Thank you.
Okay, Fortune, thank you very much. On that perspective, looking at the issue of releases you just raised, I think one of the challenge is also looking at the revenue projection in terms of budget finances. Yeah, because let's say at least conservatively, the last 5 years, we've not been able to meet our revenue projection in the budget, and this may also be affecting the releases because allocation is different from releases. But another thing is also looking at performance of the budget itself within, within the little that we have in terms of value for money and in terms of where the money goes. Looking at it, the rural areas, ministries at the rural areas don't really get these releases. The greater chunk of the money goes to the federal ministry here at the FCT. So you find out others at the periphery, are facing the challenge of not even seeing anything being released. And it was just pointing at the percentage, of the assembly and the quantity of money going to them as allocation when compared to these major key ministries that we are referring to. Okay, thank you very much. Blessing, please, can we get your perspective, then help us also check our questions and refer to the persons that they are referring to.
All right, thank you very much. Quite an insightful discussions. Madam Mary has actually pointed my major concern in terms of mechanization and how do we get labor saving and user friendly and affordable small machineries for small older farmers. So that has been, I think in the course of the responses, Dr. Andrew would be throwing more light on that. With that said, I'll go straight to the questions. We have a lot of questions and comments here, and I'll be reading out the questions. Before then, we have a comment from Dr. Utive Guzo, and he said the policy recommendations should be sent to the leadership of the National Assembly, the Appropriation Committee, and all members of the Appropriation Committee. So that's his comment, that the recommendations from here should be sent to the appropriate authorities for actions. Then we have another question from Christo Mary, and her question goes to Dr. Andrew, and she's saying, is the government's role only to facilitate reform budgets without considering practical realities on the influence of the budget on citizenry? So that question goes to Dr. Andrew, and we have another question for Dr. Andrew as well. And he said, secondly, should the effects of COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria currently not enough signal for government at all levels to visualize the other critical pandemics, which are COVID hunger and COVID health, and consider increasing the budget of agriculture and health instead of reducing the budgets? Then thirdly, if the proposed increase in education is sunk much in the school feeding program, does that save the education sector at all? So these are a couple of questions for Dr. Andrew, and maybe any other person that can throw more lights on that. Do I take all the questions, or we pause for Dr. Andrew to respond?
Okay, let's pause for Dr. Andrew to respond. Dr. Andrew, you have 2 minutes to respond, please.
Though there are other questions for him, should I take all for him?
Okay, yes, in that case, just read out all the questions to him, because some of them may be related.
Okay. And we have another one in terms of the 2020 budget. Okay, so this is not for Dr. Andrew. There's another question here that says, with the 1.73% aggregate budgetary allocation of the total budget for 2020, if further reduced means low gear towards food security, no quality, sufficient and accessible input, no gender-friendly equipment, no adequate extension services, no good storage facilities, etc. So these are the concerns that Dr. Andrew needs to respond to. I will read more as the time goes, because we have a couple of them here. So maybe we should let him respond, and we'll get other ones to him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Blessing. For lack of time, I will quickly just run through these questions. I think the first question I would like to clarify is the one raised by Madam President of the Women Small Farmers. She raised a lot of issues. I agree with her entirely that there's need to have gender-friendly technologies. To allay her fear, I want to tell her that this program has taken 4 years to design, because we needed to do that detailed understanding of the local perspective. So it's a homegrown program. So on the issue of small and women-friendly machines, she needs to understand that the smallholder farmers that she has here, we have similar production system in Brazil with what they call the family farming. So the technologies coming in encompass from the very smallest, as small as 1 acre, even half-acre land, all the way. So the good thing is that we are talking about technology transfer package. Actually, the subtitle to this green imperative is technology transfer package. So it is taking into cognizance all of the small machines that are needed, and issue of fearing to displace the smallholder farmers, particularly women, from their land doesn't arise at all, because there are 2 things in agri policy implementation. It's the capability to target the beneficiaries and to execute it in line with design. So in targeting, what is missing in Nigeria today is understanding with clarity where the farmer is, where is his farm. And currently in preparation, this is exactly what government is doing. In fact, after this, I'm going into a meeting where we are deploying over 70,000 of the young Empower Agro youth to actually go systematically during this farming season to map out all of the farmlands tied to the owners so that you know exactly that the small piece here is for this person so that we can have proper technology penetration. And she said on the issue of budget implementation, I agree with her completely. The issue is more on implementation of the budget than on how big the budget is. And I agree with all the other concerns that have been raised, that our challenge again is how do the budgets emanate? And I thank God that the lady from National Assembly is here together with the executive. We need to know that budgets have to come from the grassroots. So it's impossible to write budget in Abuja and target somebody in Umutike or target somebody in Kuchungoro. You know, it's not possible. You have to build the budget from grassroots so that you can target. Then it's not saying southeast or northeast or whatever. No, there is a different process. And that conversation, I think, National Assembly and the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, now Finance, Budget and National Planning, have to do that. How do we generate budgets in Nigeria? It's fundamental. If we do not generate it appropriately, then it will never be implemented. Then the implementation, you can't track even if you track implementation, you will never be able to track the impact if the budget didn't come from the people. So back again to say this issue on the green imperative, the 1.2. Madam President, we have been to every zone to discuss with smallholder farmers. We might have not spoken to you because the Brazilians wanted people to speak to people on their farms, and we went unannounced. So we have been to every corner to talk to, from the very smallest to the small, to hear their concern, to see them. And we did this during planting, we did during growing, we did during harvest. So clearly, this is visualized. I told myself, why do you take 5 years to design a project? But I think it's very important because this is necessary. So then, back to the larger questions, the impact on the citizenry, Mary, it is true that this will have impact on the citizenry. It's been considered, just as the other panelists have said, if we do not inject technology into our production, we will not be able to increase yield. And the first, in the opening remarks, somebody has mentioned the Green Initiative, the APP. It says productivity increase. The concerns around agriculture is not how large your land is. It's what you get per square meter of land. And that is where technology is needed, where extension services are needed, because you need to increase the yield, not the expansion of the land. I am personally a person that advise government not to open up more lands, but let us intensify the yield on the available 34 million hectares under cultivation. That is more than enough. We should preserve our agric lands. It's not about opening new lands, it's about increasing productivity. And that should be a policy focus that is very important. And the hunger and health issue, yes, we have to grow. And all economic discussion around the world today, if you have spoken with any proper economist, they'll tell you that for Africa, for Nigeria, the way forward post-COVID-19 is how do we channel our large population into domestic food production. That is the only way, because the entire food system, supply chain system has been disrupted. It's going to remain disrupted for another 24 to 36 months. So you have no hope that if COVID-19 finds a cure or a vaccine tomorrow, food will start flowing. No, foods are grown in seasons. And already Europe, America, all of them are losing this season completely. Nigeria has lost already the season in the West. So we are now seeing how do we manage and salvage the season in the North. We are grateful that we have 2 planting seasons in this country. So basically, we just need to deal with the issue of hunger and health related that will come post-harvest COVID-19. And the only way to do it is to make sure that more and more people grow food now, even if it is in your small backyard and whatever. And that brings me to the last question about reduction in the budget will affect input, quality of inputs and whatever. Yes, I agree with you. But the reality is that there is no resources. And I think we have enough, even with the reduced budget. We just need organizations like yours to be on their feet to make sure that the little resources go and deliver those inputs and services where they matter most. And then we can see it's not going to help anybody to start crying that, we want it to jump to 3% or to 10%. We just basically don't have the resources, but we have to make use of what we have. And I think that is the issue. And last thing she said, if increasing budgetary allocation to education means serving more food, or it goes to homegrown school feeding, is that is it equivalent? Yes and no. I think we need to say no, that there's a budget for education that has to do with technical education. I mean, education as teaching and learning and enabling. There's support to education through homegrown school feeding that has to do with nutrition that aids learning. But there's that budget that aids the teaching itself, the giving of the knowledge, the enabling of the teacher, the textbooks and whatever. I think that should be separated from homegrown school feeding or school feeding. School feeding helps in the absorption. When the children have right nutrition and they have food, they will absorb the knowledge. But that doesn't mean that if you increase the food to capacitate the children to absorb knowledge, it should rub off or reduce the budget to enable the teacher to deliver the quality education and to have the tools to deliver the quality education. So the lady that asked this question, or the gentleman, the two are not the same. The two are complementary. We need to fund education properly, and we need to utilize the budget of education properly, as well as providing food for the children, or school lunch, or whatever we call our own national homegrown school feeding and all of that. So I think on this, I would like to stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Andrew. A final one here. Someone is asking, in terms of the 2020 budget review, does it require another? Oh, sorry, that's not for you. The question is, when is the federal government looking out, taking off on the mechanization service centers? Any contact for more information on this scheme? That's a question that someone wants to get further information on.
Thank you very much. As the National Assembly, the Senate lady have said, it is true that Federal Executive Council has passed it on the 13th, and immediately on Monday this week, we had a meeting with the leadership of the Senate, and yesterday we received the extract of the National Assembly of the FEC approval and conclusions that I believe is on its way to Attorney General to issue the legal note. So by and large, we have the commitment of the National Assembly, the leadership, that said, if they will advise the two ministers, Agric and Finance, please place this request before us so that we can deal with it before our summer vacation. And I remember both of them, the Speaker and the Senate President, said that if anything, they would like to pass this loan so that we can move ahead quickly. So I hope that we should be able to get it out before the National Assembly goes on the summer break recess, and then that takes us closer to when it will start. On the issue of contact, we're in the preparatory, because this has whole project appraisal documents across, so we are soon going to do a kind of zonal reach out to the public to enlighten them and to lay the documents, the procedures and everything. It will be both announced, it will be in the print media, it will be online. We must allow Nigerians to give us their best who can run this, and it must be seen by every community that is transparently done, that the best hand is the hand that is managing this, and whatever comes to the community as in-kind loan to the operator is representing the needs of the people of Nigeria. So we will make all this available in due course, and I can assure you that we are in this together. We have a joint task force with Brazilian experts and Nigerian experts working on this, and we will soon be reaching, once the lockdown is lifted, we'll be reaching zone by zone and state by state to really educate farmers on how this goes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We have some questions for Barrister Onyekwere. Barrister, sir. Hello, Barrister. Is Barrister still with us? Barrister Eze?
I am still with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We have some couple of questions for you. What is your take on Nigerians borrowing from development finance institutions to the tune of $6.9 billion? These borrowings are to take the country's debt stock to over 30 trillion naira. Government has already said there is no cause for concern because the country is borrowing for development projects. And some analysts have said the situation is unavoidable because of the times. What is your take on this, sir?
Okay, that's the question for me, right?
Yes, sir.
I lost the connection for about 30 seconds, so I missed a good part of the question, but let me have my take on the issue of borrowing. First of all, we have to look at our ability to repay before we continue borrowing. I had my...
Sorry, we seem to have lost you. Hello, sir.
Blessing, maybe you can go on with another person until he gets connected.
Okay, we have some couple of comments. Madam Grace Obi said that he works with the budget and national planning, and he has some comments on how these three critical MDAs should engage during planning sessions. That's education, health, and agriculture. He said from his experience in 30 years in budget and national planning has shown that federal government tends to fund MDAs that speak to the priority highlighted in the plan documents. For example, the renovation of Abuja Road will be funded in the Ministry of Works project.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
I missed you people. I don't know why the connection is too bad. It's too bad, but can I finish what I was saying?
All right, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I was saying that if you want to invest in a tradable sector. The statistics shows that agriculture productivity is 91.2% driven by the informal sector. And that informal sector is not a likely sector to pay tax to government. It's also not a huge tradable sector. Less than is about 8.2% that is formalized. So if you are going to borrow money, $1.2 billion, which is roughly about 500 billion naira, how are you going to pay back? Because we have not even started processing all these crops, animals, and vegetables to add value to them for export. So for me, it doesn't make sense to borrow to fund this kind of agriculture for now. We should have looked for internal resources to be able to fund it. Otherwise, we may run ourselves into a huge fiscal crisis. We may not be able to repay the loan. And moreover, let's check the cost-benefit analysis. Must we even borrow from foreigners to do our agriculture? If we sit down and cut costs, which we can identify from the petroleum subsidy, which has been done, from a lot of other areas, and then our leaders begin to take themselves more seriously, we can raise this money locally and use it to fund our vehicle assembling plants so that they can do the backward integration of putting those equipments at the back that can draw, when you put an engine on top of it, when you put a trailer, a lorry engine, it can draw it and
Okay, Blessing, it seems Ezra is still having challenges. Please, can you quickly summarize? Let's give the speakers one minute to round up. The system will soon lock us out.
Okay, just a last comment, because we have a couple of comments, questions. They are all trooping. I will go back to Dr.
Those are important. I have strong objections to that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, back to Dr. Andrews, sir. This came in from our YouTube channel. Someone is asking, what is the basis for government's current plan to use COVID-19 donations for budgets? That is one comment for you, sir. And before you respond, sir, I want to also ask this question, I think, to Mrs. Ma. Someone is saying, how can CSO put pressure on government to reduce recurrent costs and ways to ensure adequate funding for key sector. So if you could help us throw more light on that. We'll hear from Dr. Andrew first, then before Mrs. Ma.
Thank you very much again for giving me this opportunity. Well, the gentleman that asked that government is using COVID-19 donation to fund budget, I don't want to comment on that because I don't know how credible it is. I know that the federal government has put a stimulus package in place, and that's the stimulus package has prioritized the key sectors of the economy that have potential to create more jobs, to create food sufficiency, and to protect workers particularly. So I know that that package will soon be announced. So I don't know if that is what is being misunderstood to mean spending donation to fund budget, because we have our own national stimulus package that will soon be announced by Mr. President, and that has various key sectors like agriculture, works and housing, education and all, to make sure that we spend our stimulus package in the most impactful sectors during and post COVID-19. Let me quickly comment on what Barisa was trying to say. You see, the problem is that, and this is a problem to our country, where we have expertise that try to comment on what is not their area of expertise. So when someone says 91% of Nigerian farmers are in the small holder and informal, and therefore we shouldn't be spending on them, that is the worst irony, really. That is actually tells me that Nigerians don't even understand what type of economics they should be talking or advising their country to do. So if you go back to Southeast Asia, if you look at China, if you look at Vietnam, you look at all the other major countries that have moved post Second World War out of poverty, they really did it by focusing on the rural agrarian poor.
Hello, Dr. Andrew. Hello, Dr.
Yeah, network challenge. Maybe another you can take.
Yeah, because of time and the network situation with Dr. Andrew, can we get Mrs. Ma?
Yeah, we have, over the years, we have been doing campaigning for more allocation to key areas of key ministries, impact directly on the lives of men and women, especially women in Nigeria. But what after a while, we started doing NGO work and all that, and we were not getting the actual result we were getting in the past. But to answer this question directly, what Action Aid is doing now is very critical. And because Action Aid also has the network and partners that can actually make a very big impact. And the first step is to have the ideas gathered together. You can hear Dr. TV Buzo, who is Chief of Staff to the Deputy Senate President, saying the outcome of this conversation should be sent to the National Assembly. And he's our full soldier inside National Assembly. And I know that Action Aid will collect all this we have said today and improve on it, and gather also together to do the street work and make the National Assembly and the executive take serious interest in also ensuring that more allocation goes to these key ministries, and also ensure that it's also very sad that people come to defend non-implementation of capital projects, especially constituency projects. I've been charged to court by a former senator for also reporting what we saw on the ground. We have it in pictures. And you know, the one we tracked was the Jonathan one. We also have information from the Ministry of Finance that this money had been released. So we are saying that we are all Nigerians. If Nigeria is good, it's good for all of us. And the answer to this question, that Action Aid that has started this conversation, we also mobilize a civil society group to engage both the executive and National Assembly and ensure that more that nobody reduces the allocation to agriculture, education and health and women ministry, and also ensure that they are specific. We know that building capacity of farmers and those who teach them how to farm is good. But when you say capacity building, not central, it doesn't make sense. We need specifics, and we need to ensure that these projects are implemented and value for money, and to monitor and assess the performance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. We have a couple of questions, and we want to apologize that we would not be able to take these questions. But from the responses we've gotten and from the discussions from the panelists, I'm sure most of these questions have been addressed. Back to you, Celestine.
Yeah, Blessing, thank you very much. Yeah, it has been wonderful. Maybe we can just spend a few minutes to take questions from the participants. Chas, can you help us with that?
One minute, I'm looking at whose hand is up. Okay, Grace, Obi, Victoria, Ugo, and Omolara Afolaya. I think we can take one minute from these people. Now I go to Grace. Grace, now you can speak.
Just 1 minute, please.
Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. I need to be sure okay. I want to first thank the Action Aid for this opportunity and to appreciate our panelists for doing a great job. I think that it's been one very useful conversation. I'm Grace. I work with the budget and national planning, the planning aspect. Blessing had read one of my questions, but I just want to contribute to say that one thing I know about this Wiki ministry, fortunately, I have been the, what would I call it, the lead planner on health, education, women affairs, and recently agric. When we begin budgets or planning process, making recommendations, some of our colleagues from these ministries don't really show the kind of attention that makes it look as if their programs are important. I want to give an example of what we did with the homegrown school feeding and the SIP. When we started that program, we asked education and the rest to come. They send new officers that just come there to warm the chair. Eventually, the program went to the vice president's office, and now we have a new ministry. What education and health should have been coordinating. I want to suggest that now government is developing a white paper on economic and how Nigeria moves post-COVID-19. These three key ministries should be part of the planning process, because at the end of it, if the white paper comes out, government will give money to those people that showed interest and made great comments. And that's how I agree with our leader and the Dr. Ibuzo that said that the white paper should go to National Assembly. Let it get to finance. Let it go to budgets. Let it get to planning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Grace. Charles, the next speaker.
Omolara.
If Omolara is not ready, any other person before we move on?
I'm trying to unmute her mic. Omolara, unmute your mic and talk. Then Victoria.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Yeah. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. You have 60 seconds. You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, my name is Victoria. I have two questions. Number one, how can we ensure that the budgeting for health, agric, and education start from the grassroots? We need to find a way to ensure that. Then the other concern I have is that we are talking about constituency projects. A lot of these constituency projects are actually local government projects. How are we going to ensure that the local governments are equipped to do their work rather than get the legislature doing constituency projects? How can we ensure that the local government do their work? Because those projects are local government projects.
Thank you. Yeah. Next person, Omolara.
Hello.
Then Oluwaseun.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I have two questions. Okay. Can we hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes. So one of the things I realized is a major problem to our budget in Nigeria is duplication of items. For example, Ministry of Work have a lot of projects that are being duplicated with NEMA. Okay, and what can we do to ensure those projects, like for example, Kefi Abuja Road is being stated as a renovation in Ministry of Work and being stated as maintenance in NEMA? What can we do to ensure we undo all this duplication of items? Because if we can undo them, it will reduce a lot of excessive spending, which is affecting our budget. Then secondly, I noticed that most monitoring organizations focus really on National Assembly budget, which only handles about 1% to 2% of the total budget. How can we start ensuring that these monitoring organizations start focusing on executive budget to ensure that money goes to where it's supposed to go to?
Thank you very much. Abdurrahman Ayuba, are you there?
Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon. You have to
Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much. This is Abdurrahman Ayuba from Kwara State. I just want us to look at the area of subnationals. Most often we look at the federal government, but most of this development is really at the grassroots level.
Okay. Oh yeah, maybe you come out now.
Yes.
Ayuba, you might have to type in your question. Your connectivity is
proper synergy.
Okay, Charles, probably he will have to send his questions. Let's move on. There's no time. Please, our esteemed speakers, please, we'll take one minute to round up. In the course of rounding up, please just respond to any of the questions that you can. You know, issue of participation was raised. This has been a major challenge fundamentally for us for Nigerian budget. That grassroots participation is still lacking and lacking. Yeah, there have been improvements at the national level, which is not enough. Civil society are participating at the national level, but going down, you know, the grassroots, you know, getting what really goes into the budget from the communities, from the local government, these are still area of major challenge for us. And it has been a concern of Action Aid. It has been a major thing that we are driving. So, Eze, I can see that you're back.
Yes, yes.
Eze, 1 minute to round up.
One minute. In fact, I want to run. The thing I want to say that I heard my colleague, I think from the Ministry of Agriculture, wherever, instead of responding to the question, talks about people dabbling in center things that they know nothing about, which is very extremely unfortunate, because I don't know when he started discussing or analyzing fiscal policy. First of all, my point is that fund small-scale agricultural holders, but don't go borrowing money in foreign currency when the product of what they're going to do is not for export to earn foreign currency. At a time our reserves are low, and the naira to the dollar will keep depreciating. That's my argument. Let him not misrepresenting it to say, I said don't fund small-scale farmers. Fund them by whatever means, but don't go borrowing money in foreign currency. And I insist that it is not tradable. Let him tell me the products that we are exporting that is coming from these farmers. Let him not open this thing to vulgar abuse, because I will not take that. But let him discuss issues. I don't think he knows much more than me.
Eze, thank you very much for your contribution. Yeah, Dr. Tafa, just to respond.
Yeah.
Conclusion and recommendation from
you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, this webinar is x-raying the effect. Okay, can I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
The theme of our webinar is x-raying the implication of the 2020 budget cut on key sectors, health, education, and agriculture. Definitely, budget shocks in terms of inadequate funding will affect these key sectors. And one thing we have to understand is that No budget provision can cover the funding of these sectors 100%. These sectors, health, education, and agri, has some kind of allowance for intervention funds. And that's why you see CBN always intervening on the agricultural sector. Even other health partners intervene in health, and other partners also intervene in education. But what should be required in a time such as this is a coordinated framework to ensure that all the funds going to agri, health, and education is known and well coordinated and administered. Then I'd quickly like to respond to Victoria's question about the bottom-up approach to budget process. At the ministry level, they need to do a lot of work to ensure bottom-up approach level. There are ministries, there are departments, and there are agencies. There are situations, and I'm not saying it is all, but there are very few situations where the minister may want to aggregate the budget for agencies and departments at the ministry level. It's important that within the ministry level, there is serious discussion with heads of agencies at the state, rural levels, heads of departments to aggregate what they call their own budget. Then constituency projects that the national goes to the local government level. But for the local government budget, constituency projects will be seen as intervention projects. That does not mean that the local government will stop planning to implement projects in that area. The only thing they should avoid is duplication, where constituency projects duplicate local government projects. So when we do this, we ensure that budget is bottom up, and we also strengthen the agriculture, education, and health in this period of COVID-19. But certainly, every fund that we can get is needed to support smallholder agriculture, to support players in the health sector, and to also support our education system. Because basically, when you add these sectors together, they constitute a...
Okay, Dr. Abraham, thank you very much for that.
For social sector of COVID-19 or any other shock. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, a question that I would have thrown to you, probably you can send it, or how do we expand the fiscal space? Is very, very important for us, especially now. Mary, I'm coming to you. Please, Mary, 1 minute of your concluding remark. Mary, please.
Thank you very much. This has been a very good discussion. In my conclusion, I want to draw the attention of Dr. Andrew. If they're actually using the Brazil model, they should use it all, because President Lula of Brazil designed the Brazil model, and he was the one in charge after coming down as a president. I'm the national president of Women Farmers, and across the 36 states, when this program was launched in Abuja, the Federal Ministry of Agri invited us, we were part of it. But I'm surprised none of my women have been captured as one of the people that they interviewed. Let this program come and actually impact on farmers, especially women, so that political farmers don't take it and the loan become a problem. There should be proper utilization of this loan to actually look at how we can increase production, processing, and actually marketing. Processing, milling, and storage equipment should be a key sector that should be looked into in implementing this project. Thank you very much, and we look forward to benefiting. My women in all the 36 states must have access to these plans when it comes to take place. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mary, thank you very much for joining and that concluding remark. Okay, please, maybe 1 minute also from you. Mma, can you hear us? Just please check if she's muted.
She's on mute now. Uma.
Okay. Mma, please, your concluding remark.
She's still muted.
She's still muted. Dr. Andrew has left. Fortune, please, your conclusion.
Okay, she's unmuted now. She has unmuted.
My conclusion is that what Ene said about the allocation to National Assembly, including the renovation allocation, is too much when compared with our population of over 200 million people, citizens, that we need to take part of this allocation. That's my own recommendation to the health, education, and agri because the a percentage of Nigerians that are privileged shall not allow us to continue in this world of poverty and death, maternal death and child mortality for so long. And we need also that ActionAid should continue, go beyond this conversation and mobilize all of us to engage both the executive and National Assembly and begin the real process, because we have been, what the ICPC tracked last year is what we have been tracking. But because we are doing it at different levels and spending so much energy and getting little result, if we come together and track this implementation of this project, whether it's the executive or National Assembly, we are looking for our money to ensure that there is the projects allocated funds for are implemented and the value for money, which is for the good of every Nigeria. Nobody should defend another person. ActionAid, I'm taking it back to you. You have a lot of work to go beyond this conversation and mobilize the citizens in Nigeria to ensure that whatever is doing is not copy and paste, is for the good of Nigeria, the good of small-scale farmers, that women are majority operators in that field, and they are suffering. So like what Mary said, you see a 40-year-old woman farmer, she looks at 80-year-old woman farmer. The time to assist them with technology and to expand our food and ensure food security and ensure that women are contribute effectively and efficiently to economic growth and reduction in poverty and reduction in child mortality and maternal mortality, which has been disgracefully so high across the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Fortune, can we hear from you? The closing, 1 minute.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Just before I answer one or two questions on the side, someone asked who I'm representing. I think that has been answered already. And then on the Food Reserve Agency bill, it was passed in the 6th Assembly, but it wasn't assented to. And just on Tuesday this week, it's gone through second reading, and that's for Usman. It's gone through second reading and referred to the Senate Committee on Agriculture. So we'll be looking into it, and at some point we'll invite it for public hearing when things stabilize, or depending on how we want to go about public hearings in future, perhaps virtual proceedings. Ms. Maudi, you just left the screen. You're talking about National Assembly and the renovation and talking about how the money can be used in agriculture. Adebayo has already said the National Assembly budget, if you can observe properly, is just 1%, which is allocated to National Assembly, 125 billion out of 10-point-something trillion. And every day they hamper the National Assembly. If you can look inwards, there are other areas the government can actually get money. I'm not saying renovating National Assembly is a priority, but most of you NGOs, we are the National Assembly, we work with the NGOs. In fact, we have the same kind of focus. National Assembly, NGOs are pursuing the same thing, the interests of everyone. Go to the National Assembly today, there is need for renovation. I don't know about the figures, I'm not here to defend National Assembly. The lifts are not working. ActionAid, you come to National Assembly, you climb to the 4th floor every day, and I'm sure you see that. Lifts are not working, the toilets are broken. So these assessments are not done by National Assembly, but maybe through the FCDA or so, and they came up with the figures. But that should not really be our focus now. Our focus is how to move the sector forward. And so I'd like to say that, I'd like to say that the National Assembly is there. The major role is to pass laws, and when the laws are brought to the National Assembly, they ensure that they pass them in good time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The National Assembly has been a key player. Yeah, through the public hearing, a lot have been happening and there have been a lot of changes. So, Ene, just before Ene gives us the closing remark, Ene, please, what's your advice to the government? 1 minute, because previously your connection was very bad, especially how the fiscal space can be expanded. Just 1 minute. Hello, Eze, it's muted. Okay, if he's muted, then Ene, please, can you conclude for us?
Okay, I want to say a very big thank you to all the panelists, for the great job. I know that if we had more time, we would have done more. There's a lot of provocation, so many questions coming in. And I want to say that all of these questions will be documented, sifted. There's a lot that they have downloaded from YouTube as well. One of the advice is when you go to copy from other people, you need to copy it rightly, just like the former president has said. If we went to copy the things from the agri, we went to study familiar on social protection before we came in and settled and started demanding social protection, in Nigeria, which came down so many years down the line. But the Brazilian example, Brazil 2020, budget that is running, the allocation to agri is 15%. Is $58.5 billion that is allocated to agriculture. So if we have 1%, it shows that we are still not talking about diversification the way we should be talking about it. We need to neutralize, because the COVID-19 has also shown that going the way of oil is not helping matters. We have a lot of, we have all the resources and everything it takes. So we do need to diversify, and the way to diversify is about putting the priorities in the budget and allowing the economy to grow. So I want to say a big thank you to the moderators, and thank you to all the participants for your patience with us and for the time that you have provided. We will see what we can, do what we can. And thanks to TV, for silently participating. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Onyebere, thank you. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear you. We appreciate everyone, as she has said. Thank you for participating. Also, our participants that we are not seeing. We appreciate everyone. Thank you very much. We will ensure that the proceedings of this meeting gets to the National Assembly. Utibe has already promised us to send that to him to facilitate. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah, have a nice day. Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye. Madam Ene, bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Fortune.
Bye.
Celestine.
Tefa.
Okay.
Excellent.